Hi, Jane Velez Mitchell here for Jane Unchained, and we want to get the very latest on the never-ending saga known as Jodi Arias, straight out to the one and only Beth Karas of Karas on Crime, who knows more about this case than anyone. You were in the courtroom when the second hung jury came back in the penalty phase retrial. I've got to ask you what that moment was like.
You know, it was already almost a month ago. It was March 5th, and the jurors had deliberated for several days. We had heard murmurings that, and we understood that there was a deadlock. So when the court said there was a verdict, we thought, maybe whoever was holding out for life has caved in, or vice versa. We have a verdict. 12 people were in agreement. To me, a verdict means unanimity. It means they reached a decision, a verdict, the case is over. In this case, well, it was another deadlock, but it wasn't a verdict. However, the case is over, right? 2 hung juries in a row means it's a life sentence for Jodi Arias. There were sobs, audible sobs and tears in that courtroom on the side of the prosecution where Travis Alexander's family was. One of his sisters was just bent over sobbing. I believe it was Hillary. But all the family members were very upset. It was such a long trial again, almost as long as the guilt, aggravation, and the penalty phases together in 2013. And here they didn't get the result they wanted. But I have to keep reminding people that they still got justice because Jodi Arias is a convicted murderer. That Kim and Fred Goldman would have loved to have heard the word that they heard, guilty of first-degree murder. They didn't hear it. Little Kaylee Anthony didn't get her justice, thrown in the woods like a piece of garbage in a bag, in a garbage bag. There was no justice for Kaylee. Her murderer went unpunished whatsoever, not even child neglect. So there is justice for the Alexander family, but there were a lot of tears in that courtroom that day. They just want to put an end to it. And then, the judge has them come back on April 13th, several weeks in advance. Again, they have to come back for the sentencing, but they'll be there.
What is likely to happen at that sentencing? I personally don't think this judge is ever going to let Jodi Arias see the light of day, but technically, could she allow her the chance of parole or release after 25 years?
Yes, she could theoretically, but there is no mechanism in place for that. So while the judge could say, I sentence you to basically the lesser of 2 life sentences, that is life with the possibility of release up to 25 years, I would bet any amount of money anyone wants to bet me that the judge is going to give her natural life. That's what they call life without parole. LWOP in other states, they call it natural life here because they technically don't have a parole system anymore.
What was Juan Martinez, the prosecutor's reaction when that second hung jury was announced?
Well, you can imagine that he was just devastated because that first jury in 2013 voted 8 for death, 4 for life. This jury voted 11 for death. I mean, he basically got what he wanted because we learned later in the jury press conference where the holdout did not, she didn't join everyone else, that at least one of the alternates would have voted for death.
Tell us about the one-woman holdout juror number 17.
Yeah, she was in seat number 17 during jury selection. She was known by a different number. She was a little bit of a loner. She is married for the second time. Both of her husbands had criminal records, ex-cons. In fact, her first husband was prosecuted by Juan Martinez right around the time she married him in May 2000. And so the prosecution or some investigation is going on to determine whether or not she lied at all in her jury questionnaire or during voir dire. Her questionnaire was what was comprehensive. And they're asked whether or not they recognize any of the parties, and she said no. But her first husband, who actually took a plea to the felony he was charged with, she may not have been in court with him, or a different deputy county attorney could have taken the plea that day, so she never laid eyes on Juan Martinez, so maybe she wasn't lying. Who knows? But anyway, so she was married to this guy who she then divorced and married another guy, her current husband, who had done some time in state prison years before she knew him. And he's totally straightened out, and they have a family now. Well, she she claims that, she was bullied by her first husband. He was psychologically abusive, emotionally abusive. She called him a bully. I was there in jury selection when she described that. Juan Martinez actually tried to get her excused for cause, but the judge wouldn't allow it. She disclosed that she had seen part of the Jodi Arias Lifetime movie. She disclosed that. She admitted it, parts of it, she said. And the judge, would not allow Martinez to excuse her. Both sides only had 10 peremptory challenges when picking the jury, and while we don't know when they were exercising those peremptory challenges where they don't have to have a reason for excusing someone, we don't know if he was out of his challenges. But that was toward the end of the 19 jurors they were selecting, so he may not have had any more challenges to boot her, but he did actually try to get her off at the end, a couple days before the deadlock. He tried to find a reason, but the judge basically said, I can't do it now.
I have to say that when I heard that they were going to do this retrial, I wrote a headline when my book, Exposed: The Secret Life of Jodi Arias, came back out in paperback. And I said, will prosecutor Juan Martinez snatch defeat from the jaws of victory? Because I really felt this was very likely to happen. It's hard. It's easy to say hypothetically or theoretically you can kill somebody. It's harder after spending month after month in the same room with this person, day after day, month after month, to actually pull that trigger and say, yes, I vote for death. And I felt the fact that it's not fair, but the fact that she's a pretty young woman would be a factor in the case. So I wasn't terribly shocked by this, and I thought it was a mistake to retry. I know that that's what most of the family members wanted, but I feel that putting her away for life is really the best answer. I personally don't believe in the death penalty. It has nothing to do with this case. I just don't believe you solve violence with more violence. And so I'm kind of glad I wasn't out there, because I have tremendous sympathy for the family of Travis Alexander. What they've gone through is gut-wrenching and horrific, and my heart goes out to them. And I really grew to like Travis as a person as I researched him for my book. In fact, we shared a lot of the same passions for animals and for compassion in common, and I really felt a bond with him. But nonetheless, I don't believe that the death penalty is a smart system in today's society.
Had she received a death death sentence, then the taxpayers would have been paying for a couple of decades worth of appeals. And according to a juror in another capital case that was tried just before Jodi Arias, the judge in that case told the jury who gave this woman life that 70% of death verdicts get returned for a new trial and only 2% of life verdicts. Because Jodi Arias she's going to get one free appeal, and every other appeal she's going to have to find someone to do it pro bono, or she's going to have to raise the money. She's not going to get the scrutiny on appeal that she would if this had been a death verdict. So the taxpayers have already paid over $3 million to her defense. They don't have to pay, one more appeal and that's it. Then they can wash their hands of Jodi Arias, and she's on her own with an appeal. What's going to happen on Monday, April 13th? People on the victim side, the prosecution side will speak, and then on the defense side. Now, the Victims' Bill of Rights in Arizona is now incorporated in their state constitution, and so the victims have very specific rights. And so they will have a right to speak and say things. I mean, they can look at her, they can point at her, they can scream at her, they can, call her the devil, they can do all kinds of things if they want to that they couldn't do during the victim impact.
Well, I just want to say that you have my tremendous admiration for sticking with this case right till the end, literally moving to Phoenix, Arizona for Karis on Crime, which is an incredible subscription site, and I urge everyone to subscribe. And literally, doggedly following this thing to the end. And I do hope you come back for one last update after this hearing in April.
Sure.
Let us know, the specifics. I guess as we wrap up, my final question, what's going to happen to her if she gets natural life? Where does she go? Is she going to some supermax or what?
Well, she will be in maximum in the facility that is the only facility for women in the state of Arizona. It's within Maricopa County. It's only about 25 minutes down the road from where she's been living for the past 7 years. It's called Perryville. So she will be in a unit within Perryville that is maximum. She's going to have her own cell for 2 years, but it's the same size cell that she would share with someone else. So she's actually getting, a single dorm room basically instead of having to share. But she prefers to be alone. That's what I understand. Anyway, but if she behaves herself within 30 days, despite being in her own cell, she can start integrating into the population and taking some classes and just being part of the general population. But that depends upon her behavior. I just want to say one thing about my site. I have some exclusive documents up there, although other people are either ripping them off or getting them on their own. Jodi's manifesto.
Wow.
When she was in Wairika, before she was extradited down to Arizona. It's a 36-page manifesto I have on my site. I've got 8 volumes of her journals. I put those up months ago, and some other writings. I have the G-Chat fight between Travis and Jodi on May 26th that many believe precipitated the fight that led to his murder. That's a 15-page document. There's more that I'm forgetting, but anyway, there's also all sorts of good stuff to read on the site.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, can't wait to check that out. Again, that's Karis on Crime, and the one and only Beth Karis has been kind enough to join us here on Jane Unchained.